Well, last year, PJ Media published an 11-article series entitled Every Single One, the result of a year-long investigation into the hiring practices within the Department of Justice and their Civil Rights Division. Our correspondents, PJ Media legal editor J. Christian Adams and Hans von Spakovsky, discovered the DOJ had used an ideological litmus test when evaluating applicants. While the mainstream media ignored the story, Adams and von Spakovsky stayed on the case and revealed that Eric Holder's department had indeed used shady hiring practices. Well, now their work has been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, but will the board dare to bestow an honor upon those in the conservative media? Joining me now from our studios in Washington, D.C. to talk about their work, PJ Media legal editor J. Christian Adams and PJ Media contributor Hans von Spakovsky. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us on, Bill.
Indeed.
Exceptional work both of you guys have done here. Christian, let's start with you. Since resigning from the Justice Department over the egregious handling of the Black Panther voter intimidation case, you've been diligent in exposing some of the dubious practices within the Obama administration. Tell us how this series first came about.
Well, it first came about, frankly, in 2007 when the Boston Globe did the exact same series, except not as well. It was directed at people inside the DOJ, including me. I was in the lead paragraph in the Boston Globe Pulitzer Prize winning series. They accused the Bush administration of hiring a whopping, I think, 12 or 13 lawyers who might not have been leftists. And so once we saw what was happening in 2009 after the inauguration, we thought, and we saw firsthand inside, this is crazy. They're doing what they were accusing the Bush administration of doing, except doing it 50 times greater. So that's how the series first came about, that we decided to expose this contradiction that the Boston Globe obtained so many prizes for.
Well, Hans, this was a very thorough review of DOJ hires. Can you tell us a little bit about the amount of work that went into this? And as Christian just said, 50 times greater. Did you anticipate anything like the level of bias that you ended up finding in this series?
Well, having once worked in the Civil Rights Division along with Christian, I have to say I wasn't surprised. But it was a lot of work, and the biggest reason it was a lot of work was because of the resistance of the supposedly most transparent administration in history. Look, when Charlie Savage of the Boston Globe filed a Freedom of Information Act request on the Bush Civil Rights Division, they responded within just a couple of weeks, provided him with all the resumes of the people they hired. The Obama administration, when PJ Media served them with a Freedom of Information Act request, refused to turn over the resumes. In fact, PJs had to go to court and litigate it to try to get them to turn over these resumes. They finally agreed to do it after the litigation had gone on for quite a while. Even then, though, they actually blacked out sections of the resumes, even though they have absolutely no right under the law to do that.
Yeah, the most transparent administration in history. Guys, let's go back to 2007. You both talked about this. Journalist Charlie Savage of the Boston Globe won a Pulitzer for his reports on the hiring practices of the Bush administration. We just talked about this. Your articles are actually kind of similar, but you found results that were far more extreme.
I mean, like I said, he scratched the surface. We looked at every single one, every single hire made during the Obama administration, and found radical, incredibly leftist, agenda-driven practices. Many of them had never even been in court. Many of them had spent all their time inside left-wing interest groups doing no courtroom work, but yet in the Obama Justice Department, that's probably the best qualification you can have.
Just a final question for you guys. Hans, maybe you could take this for us here. For the average reader who's not up on this case, who may not fully appreciate the degree of bias and especially racial preferences in the Holder Department of Justice, is there anything you could tell a reader who maybe hasn't read your work, who maybe would be inspired to go read it? Can you give us some idea of the level of this corruption? Because I don't think most of our viewers fully understand just how unbelievably ideological biased this current Department of Justice really is.
Well, what everybody has to keep in mind is what we were looking at were the career hires. These are the civil service jobs that are supposed to be, nonpartisan positions, and you're not supposed to use politics and ideology when you're filling them. We weren't looking at the political appointees that the Obama administration put in. And what we found was that 100% of the individuals hired into career lawyer positions inside the Obama Civil Rights Division. It's over more than 100 positions. Every single one of those people came from a left-wing, democratic, very liberal, in some points radical, ideological backgrounds, and that is not a coincidence. And what that is a violation of the civil service rules that apply to the career ranks of the government.
And Bill, you're seeing a policy ramification. This has real impacts on voting law, on the elections next year. There's dead people on the rolls. Nothing's going to be done about it because these are the people who don't believe in doing the right thing in many instances.
Yeah, and they're giving basically a get-out-of-jail-free card to certain radical groups like the new Black Panther Party, because these are the same people who ordered the dismissal of that voter intimidation case, and that was a clear message to certain groups around the country that if they make trouble in the upcoming election, this Justice Department is going to let them get away with it.
I'll just say this for our viewers out there, with you gentlemen still present. If you look at slow motion video of vines crawling up a wall, you realize what an actual attack it is. You just don't get to see it in real time because it happens so slowly. We are at genuine risk here of losing the basis of our democracy and our republic, which is free and fair elections. Gentlemen, you've done extraordinary work. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
100%, ladies and gentlemen. You can read every single one, the entire series, and the case for why it should win a Pulitzer by heading over to pjmedia.com or click on the link below. For PJ TV, I'm Bill Whittle.